Hi everyone. Let's do scenario 2, upgrading the RIS, and scenario 3, installing a PACS. These processes are almost identical to the process for buying a modality, but just the variables change a little. So imagine a radiology department is planning to upgrade or replace their existing RIS. The department is experiencing an increasing volume of radiology procedures, yet not all revenue is being captured. There are problems closing orders, and sometimes studies go missing in the reporting and result delivery process. The institution has an existing source of patient demographics and order management, the HIS. The department has a PACS, which archives all studies produced by modalities. There are a number of existing DICOM-capable modalities, and some new modalities will be added after the RIS upgrade is completed. The primary function of the RIS will be to process orders, schedule exams, and generate reports, as well as do charge capture for procedures performed and interpretations in the radiology department. The RIS will send copies of diagnostic reports to an enterprise report repository. Again, that would be a HIS. You probably noticed that these are almost identical to the buying modality steps. The process is identical, it's just on a bigger scale. It has more touch points and integrations with a RIS. There will be many more goals for a RIS system than just one modality. It's not always possible to address all the organizational goals by making a single system purchase. Achieving the full benefit of an IHE integration profile requires that systems interacting with the RIS also play their roles as defined in the profile. The SWF and the PIR profiles form the cornerstone of integrating a RIS with other systems in the institution. They establish a seamless flow of information that supports efficient patient care in a typical imaging encounter, in certain exception cases by specifying transactions that maintain the consistency of patient information from registration through ordering, scheduling, imaging acquisition, storage, and viewing. It's strongly recommended that you start with the SWF and PIR profiles for a RIS. Just as you put integration requirements in your RFP for a modality, you'll do the same thing for your RIS RFP. Again, the statement to profile should be a 1-to-1 ratio. In other words, each profile should have its own statement in the RFP. It will have statements like, the RIS shall support the SWF profile and the PIR integration profile as the DSS order filler actor, or the radiology information system shall support the IHE charge posting profile as the DSS order filler actor. Be sure you send your RFP to a vendor that can do all the things you want from a RIS system. Make sure they support all the IHE profiles you want to include in your RFP. And just as we said with the modality purchase, be sure to read their IHE integration statement and make sure it addresses all the profiles you want. These sections are intended for the implementation team. They discuss important clinical and IT considerations when deploying a RIS system with IHE capabilities, including dealing with legacy issues when connecting the RIS to systems that do not support IHE profiles. So, consider your workflow. IHE profiles are designed to implement digital imaging in a streamlined clinical workflow. To gain the full benefit of these changes, there are several tasks that need to be performed in the correct manner, and they are done by two profiles. Guess what? They're SWF and PIR. The SWF profile ensures that patient demographics and order and procedural information are correct and consistent throughout the enterprise. They must consistently be entered from the same system, whether it's the HIS or some other system, so the responsible system can maintain and appropriately distribute the information to all interested systems. Clinical and IT personnel will need to identify the owners of certain information elements. The owners distribute the information while receivers track it. Typically, the HIS owns the patient identification. In an emergency case, the HIS is still required to reconcile the patient and update the RIS. Patients should only be registered in the HIS. The IHE workflow will update all of the systems as needed. There is no IHE workflow to update the HIS if a patient is registered at the RIS. The RIS owns the accession number and study instance unique identifier. At the modality, do not type in an accession number if it's not known. There are circumstances where you have to make up an accession number, but we'll talk about that later in a different class. So, to confirm it's working, this section gives you the tests you should perform and the expected outcomes. For example, to test order registration and order fulfillment, you would do the following. Register the patient and place orders on the HIS. Fill the order through the RIS, in other words, mark it completed. The expected outcome is that the critical patient demographics encounter information. This is information you would find in a PID and a PV1 segment in HL7. That information entered during patient registration for your test patient appears correctly on the RIS. This is just one example. In fact, this section contains 9 recommended tests to confirm interoperability between HIS and RIS. But consider how much easier it would be to run through the 9 IHE recommended tests, since you're connecting 2 IHE compliant systems, than if one isn't. If one's not IHE compliant, then you have to develop your own test to test every possible function, and you just don't want to go down that road. Consider installation issues. Again, this is not a plug-and-play system. For your HL7 interfaces, you have to configure the IP address and port for your ADT, order, and result interfaces. These may or may not be the same. This information should be shared with your HIS so it knows where to send the HL7 messages. Locate the IP address and port for the HIS, or Clinical Information System, so procedure update messages can be sent from your RIS. Finally, for HL7 procedure messages, you will need to get the IP address and port for HL7 orders from your PACS vendor to allow your RIS to send orders and patient demographics to your PACS. So there's a lot of connections to be made there. Legacy problems with one modality are fairly easy to work around. When you start talking about legacy problems at the system level, it's a much harder thing to solve and a much bigger headache. If you have deficient systems, consider how to work around those deficiencies in the short term and when you plan to replace or upgrade those systems. This section gives you several solution design ideas for connecting an IHE compliant RIS to a not IHE compliant PACS modality or HIS. IHE is all about keeping things the same, so the process for installing a PACS follows the same IHE format. Just the parameters change. Obviously, the organizational goals will be different for PACS than they were in scenario 1 and 2. Selecting the actors is going to be different also. For PACS, the key actors are Image Manager, Image Archive, and Image Display. Putting integration requirements in your RFP, identifying suitable products, and reading integration statements remains the same from the other 2 scenarios. You want to put statements in there about the actors for PACS. You want to make sure that you send it to vendors that support those actors, and you want to read the integration statements so the vendor tells you that it supports those actors. New PACS will bring huge changes to your department workflow, and you are best off to start with a whole new workflow. Just like the sections before, this section contains the steps to test your new PACS. Just like the sections before, this section contains the steps to test your new PACS. There are 14 steps to testing your PACS in this section. The biggest installation issue you will encounter is in the tables you have to build. There's a significant amount of time that goes into creating and keeping various codes in sync between different systems. Codes will need to be established for many parts of your system, as simple as a set of protocol codes to much larger sets of data such as procedure codes. These codes are typically kept in sync manually. If they are out of sync, the PACS may not accept data. Legacy problems should not be significant for this type of install. You just need orders and images in, and possibly results going out if you are using an enterprise PACS system. Okay, that's the Radiology Handbook, the scenarios it goes over, and how it's arranged. It's a good book to have in your reference collection at your desk when you're a PACS admin. See you in class on Tuesday.